What's up, folks? This is Gil with Fortitude Consulting, and I'm here with 5 easy steps for you to find consistency in finding your dot when you present the gun on target. Step number 1, we are going to be deleting the draw altogether. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our gun out and we're going to start in the compressed ready position. You'll see the compressed ready is right here just in front of my sternum. I've got some space which simulates me drawing from the holster and marrying up or placing my second hand on the gun. This is the compressed ready, and that's where we're going to start from. Why are we deleting the draw altogether? Typically, coming out of the holster, actually getting your hand on the holster or getting your hand on the gun in the holster and bringing the gun out of the holster is where, if we're off just a little bit or anything goes wrong with the cover garment or even outside the waistband, if we don't get the placement that we are comfortable with on the actual gun, then it's all for naught, right? Everything else is going to be exponentially affected. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to work from the compressed ready to avoid a lot of the bad things that happen. One of the bad things that have a tendency of coming up when we're drawing from the holster is flailing or just unnecessary motion and energy being put into your body. What do I mean by unnecessary motion and energy? One example is when we go to draw the holster from concealment, you may see your shoulder lift up and your head actually goes offline when you do that, right? When you do that, you're pushing your head, you're pushing your vision offline. Once the gun comes out, we gotta bring it back over as we're presenting the gun. The other thing that we'll see happen from the holster is, in addition to that side-to-side movement, you'll actually have front-to-back movement as well, where people think that they need to punch the gun out and go to work. Nothing could be further from the truth. That is actually exacerbating the problem. We're going to delete the draw so that we can work on keeping our posture frozen, particularly once we get to the point where we're at that compressed ready and we have both hands on the gun. We want to make sure that as the gun is presented, the only thing that's moving are the hands, the arms, and the shoulders, bringing the gun up into view in line with our eye line and in line with the target. So that's step number 2, is keeping a frozen posture. One way that I like to think about this from a mental coaching or self-coaching standpoint is think of your spine as a concrete column. That concrete column does not move in any way, shape, or form as the gun is being presented up on target. The next thing that we need to think about is staying target focused. Now, while that might seem like a very simple concept, it might mean different things to different people, so we need to solidify exactly what we're talking about. When I say staying target focused, I don't just mean looking at the target. I mean picking a specific point on the target and anchoring your vision onto that particular point. In this case, we're going to be using the USPSA metric head box, and we're going to be utilizing that line right there. As long as I can see that line and it's in focus, then I know that I am anchored onto that target. I'm using this reference point to double check myself and ensure that I'm staying target focused. Why is staying target focused so important, especially with an RDS? If we present the gun and we start looking at the glass and we don't immediately see the dot, we're gonna start hunting for it, okay? That is the definition of inefficient. We do not wanna do that. We wanna stay anchored onto the target, actually pick a specific spot on the target and make sure that that spot is in crystal clear view the entire time that we are presenting up on target and we are engaging. If at any point in time you notice that you lose sight of that spot that you had on the target and it no longer becomes visible, you're more than likely going back to your iron-sighted ways, which is shifting your vision from the target to your front sight so that you can line everything up. Well, when you do that with the dot, again, it is incredibly inefficient and you will not find any consistency in any way, shape, or form by doing that. So let's keep our consistency by staying target focused, anchoring onto that target during presentation. What is the next step that we're going to take? We're going to be looking at grip pressures, specifically grip pressures on the support hand side. What I want you to do is I want you from the compressed ready to fully present the gun up on target. And if you still, once you are on target, you still don't have the dot, what I want you to do is I want you to increase rotational pressure in your support side hand. And 90% of the time, what you're going to find is that the dot actually came from the top of the window. So having that support side pressure in place is going to ensure that the dot actually comes into view during your presentation, and once it gets to the end of the presentation on target, you should see it superimposed somewhere on that target once you're at the end of the presentation, as long as we are following those steps, right? So increasing rotational pressure. Let's really dial into what I'm talking about with that and define it. Here's the easiest way to do that. If I were to give you a jar and I were to ask you, hey, this lid's on really tight, can you open this for me? What would you more than likely do? You would take the jar with one hand, in this case I've got it in my dominant side hand, and I'm gonna hold the jar itself still. Then I'm gonna take my support side hand, I'm gonna pinch the actual cover or the lid of the jar, and once I pinch the lid of the jar, I'm going to rotate that pressure, and I'm gonna increase the pressure as I rotate into it to break that seal and then remove the actual lid from the jar. I'm not asking you to do anything different on the gun. All I'm asking you to do is to change directions or change the orientation. We're gonna bring this up to our side. Now we bring this in, we grip and pinch onto the actual lid, and I increase rotational pressure. That is the exact same concept as what we've got going on the gun. You increase that rotational pressure, and in those 90% instances where you don't have the dot at the end of your presentation, it's more than likely going to come from the top. Increasing that rotational pressure will drop it right down for you. All right, the last step, step number 5. This is going to be putting everything together. Everything together. Once you get to the point where from the compressed ready, you are keeping your posture in place, keeping that posture completely frozen. We are staying completely target focused on a very specific spot on the target. And as I present the gun, now instead of waiting until I get to the end of the presentation and I jam down that rotational pressure to drop the dot down, I'm going to induce that rotational pressure in the actual presentation, which is then going to consistently get that dot to show up and be superimposed on target exactly where, or at least close to where I am anchored with my vision on that target. The last step in all of this is once we get really good consistency from the compressed ready, now we go back to the holster and we put everything together. From the holster, we're gonna draw the gun, we're going to keep our spine in alignment, we're gonna keep our posture frozen, we're gonna get both hands on the gun, and as we present up on target with our vision firmly anchored on the target, we're going to increase that rotational pressure until we see that dot drop down into view and on target where we happen to be looking. So there you go, you've got 5 steps. We are deleting the draw initially. We are keeping a frozen posture. We are staying target focused and anchored to a particular spot on the target. We're gonna increase rotational pressure on the support side hand. And finally, once we get comfortable and we get really, really consistent and confident in doing this in presentation from the compressed ready, then we go back to the holster and we test everything out. If you follow those 5 steps, I assure you, you will find consistency in having your dot come up on target exactly where you want it so that you'll have an accurate shot. As always, these steps are not magic buttons. Just because you do it one time doesn't mean, oh, that works and I'm good to go and I don't need to do any more work. Make sure that we're digging into these. Use these as a dry fire primer, if you will, and you will see a dramatic change in your consistency, both in live fire as well as in dry fire and picking up the dot. Folks, that's all I got for you. Do me a solid. If this video helped you out in any way, shape, or form, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and check out the other content that we have on the channel. We've got some really good stuff on there, some stuff that may help you, may help a shooter that you know of is struggling with finding their dot, or any one of the other fundamentals that we work on with the content that we've got online. Above and beyond that, make sure that you're continuing to follow the process, train, prepare, prevail. We'll see you on the next one.